China, one of the last remnants of the Cold War and the spread of communism. Though there is another remnant of an even older era, the Republic of China or Taiwan. These two Chinas have been rivals for almost 100 years at this point. But what led to this? What led to an authoritarian communist regime on the mainland and a national republic on Taiwan? To answer this question, we need to go back more than a century, to the Qing. It's 1912 and the Qing dynasty, which was now being ruled by a 6-year-old, is on the brink. A revolutionary had recently returned by the name of Sun Yat-sen, and after a bomb had blown up one of the government palaces, the rebels thought, so they're probably going to blame us for that explosion. Yeah. Well, guess we better overthrow the government. Okay. And with that, the Chinese Revolution had begun. The rebels pretty much had the support of most of China, and quickly replaced the imperial system that had existed since civilization had begun, to a federation of provinces known as the Republic of China. For clarity, this is the old Republic of China, and isn't the nationalist one. And, of course, the first president of this new Republic in China was a leader from the Qing, and quickly established another dynasty with himself as the new emperor. Of course, nobody liked this, since they just established a republic, and this only had lasted for 5 seconds at this point. So China fell apart immediately after that, and went into a period called the Warlord Era, where warlords, communists, nationalists, Republicans, and even people who wanted the old emperor back fought for power. Imagine a Syrian civil war, except it's about 1,000 times the scale, and a lot more people died. This warlord period lasted until 1927, when one side became victorious, the nationalists. Though nationalist China had defeated most of the warlords, they now needed to reunify the nation after the bloody division. But there was one threat to this regime that could completely destroy it: the communists. The communists had gained influence in small pockets with help from the Soviets in Mongolia. Their armed followers were small in number, but never completely defeated. At this point, they weren't going to try to completely destroy the nationalists, as they would be completely wiped out. But then, of course, the nationalists, under Shanghai Shek, launched a purge of thousands of communists called the Shanghai Massacre, which sent a message to the communists that they would be obliterated if they didn't take action. So in 1927, they took control of small pockets in the south and launched a fierce guerrilla campaign as the Chinese Civil War had begun. On August 1st, 1927, the Communist Party had launched an uprising in Nanchang, which led to the creation of the Red Army under the leadership of He Long. As on the 4th, they moved south for an assault on Guangzhou, where they were defeated by the nationalists. Zhu Di marched into Hunan to launch more uprisings, which failed again. Things weren't looking good for the CCP, as they were kicked out of the government by the Nationalist Party, and their uprising in Hunan, now led by Mao Zedong, was crushed by Shanghai Shek. One of the leaders in the CCP even fled to the Soviet Union via Mongolia, and an uprising established a Soviet in Guangzhou, only to lose it a day later. The communist forces got a little breathing room as the nationalists got distracted with the Japanese Empire invading. This started a 10-year armed struggle between the Red Army and Second United Front due to Japan's greater and greater threat to China. In 1930, the Great Plains War broke out as an internal struggle within the Nationalist Front that bought the Red Army some time to repair, but only a year until the Nationalists struck back. It's October of 1934, and the CCP has been surrounded by Shang at Jingzi, the CCP looking as if it were to just become another enemy in China's long history. The encirclement was fierce, and in the desperation of the Red Army, after so many losses, they broke through the weakest point and began the Long March. The Long March just looked like another blunder, as many simply opted to give up instead of marching almost 7.8 thousand miles through plateaus, mountains, forests, and warlords. Some remained persistent and began the Long March, dodging Chiang's forces, climbing huge mountains, fending off warlords, and crossing a river which killed tons of the Red Army, that even led to Mao Zedong gaining complete control of the CCP. This was hard to endure, as 90% of the men who marched out of Jiangxi died during the Long March. Though this did let the Red Army regroup and organize, as the Nationalists preferred to focus on the CCP instead of Japan's advances into China, turning many to Mao, who was seen as the main defender against the Japanese invaders. The Nationalists, on the other hand, handled the Japanese poorly. I'll list off a few of the biggest mistakes, like the refusal to ally with the Communists against a common enemy, which again only led to the rise in Communist support, abandoning Nanking, their own capital, doing absolutely nothing after the Japanese were busy committing war crimes, and maintaining ties with the Third Reich until 1941, when they had supported Japan over China, which kind of looked like being friends with your greatest enemy. Although the Nationalists made some mistakes, it still looked heavily likely that Chiang would win the war. But then, this happened. So you remember when we signed that non-aggression pact with you? Yeah? Well, the Soviets invaded Japan-occupied Manchuria in 1945 and gave it to Mao and the Red Army. This led to a massive boost in the Red Army's power. Stalin even took weapons seized from the Japanese during the Soviet Manchurian campaign and gave them to Mao despite signing a treaty with the Nationalists. Despite the Communist almost complete control of North China, Chiang still ordered forces to be flown into there, which went very, very poorly. It damaged the Nationalist Army, that in only 2 years the Red Army, now the People's Liberation Front, had taken control of North and East China, including Beijing. At this point, Chiang was kind of screwed. His forces couldn't win a single fight, the People's Liberation Front had grown to number in the millions, and the CCP was approaching Nanjing. Mao advanced on Nanjing in March. The South had started even revolting in favor of the Communists, and in their desperation on December 7th, Chiang ordered the retreat to Taipei, as the CCP united all of China except Taiwan and Tibet. Mao declared the creation of the People's Republic of China and annexed Tibet. The war was over as a victory for Mao. China was finally united under the Red Banner, creating the unintentional effect of bringing the fear of the rise of communism to an 11. China would have to rebuild itself from the destruction of constant war for nearly 40 years. Unfortunately, their leader is Mao Zedong, but that's a story for another time. Thank you guys for watching, and please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I know it's been a while since I made a new video, but this took a lot of time and effort, so I hope you enjoyed it. See ya.